Hey guys, and welcome back to 5-Star Study Guide. Today we're going to start off our first unit in our U.S. History course, and that unit is Early Exploration and Colonial America. Now to start off this unit, our first lesson is going to be about Native Americans. Now there are tons of Native American tribes out there, so we want to really take a deep dive, but it's impossible to do for all of them. So we're going to look at 3 specific ones today. Alright, we're going to look at one from, let's call it the Northeast and some of the Midwest, so like kind of right there where I'm drawing. So that's going to be where our first tribe is located. Then we're going to look at one from the Southeast, down here. And then we're going to look at one from the Southwest, over here. Now, any of the unfilled spaces, they're just not really important to what we're looking at in history. All these tribes are going to have consequences coming forward. As we further our look into history. So that's why we're looking at these guys. Alright, so our first one is from the Northeast, and it's the Iroquois. Alright, so the Iroquois, as you can see on the screen here, lived anywhere from, Quebec on Ontario, around the Great Lakes, all the way to present day West Virginia, Pennsylvania, New York area, like that. So that is where they are located. So there are many Iroquois tribes that make up the Iroquois Confederacy. And as you see on our screen here, this is a picture of what the Iroquois, a meeting of all the chiefs heads of the Iroquois Confederacy would look like. So all the many tribes would meet up, their heads of tribe will meet, and they'll have a meeting as a whole Iroquois Confederacy. So when they're considered as a whole Iroquois, they are the Iroquois Confederacy. This image on the screen demonstrates an Iroquois village. So they lived in villages made up of several hundred people, depending on where they lived. Obviously, they stretched a large plots of land, as you saw in the image before. So in these villages, you see that they lived in these log houses. Alright, so that's where they lived. You got where they farmed over here. You can also look at the legend. Here's a picture of the interior of a log house. So that's, you can kind of see how they lived like that. So yeah, so definitely this is what a typical Iroquois village. Now all of them are not the same, obviously, but this picture gives us some sort of idea of what an Iroquois village would look like. So Iroquois male roles. So the men in the Iroquois society usually fished, hunted, practiced in the military. Here on the screen you can see them shooting down some deer. So as we're going to see with a lot of these tribes, the males often hunted, fished, got the food, and also partake in war whenever it was necessary. Now for the females, they'd often farm things like corn, beans, and squash, and they'd also weave things, as you can see in the picture on the right. Now the Iroquois were very big on kinship, about their ancestry, how they are all related to each other, and war. So they're very big on kinship and war, and that kind of encompasses what they are as the whole Iroquois Confederacy, as we talked about. So that's pretty much it for the Iroquois. Let's move to our Southeast tribe in the Cherokee. Now, the Cherokee, they're going to have big implications coming forward. So it's important, as I said before, we're going to look at people that are going to be consequential to history. It is important that we understand the Cherokee because they're going to take a big part later down the line. So let's take a look at the Cherokee. So some quick facts. They're part descendants of the Iroquois. So you're going to see a lot of similarities between them. There are going to be some differences as well. There's going to be a lot of similarities in them. And as we will see in the future, like I told you, they are very strong politically. They have strong political beliefs. They are very interactive, strong on their thoughts people. So the Cherokee, as you can see in this red line that's outlined, parts of Kentucky, West Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, and Tennessee. That's where they were located. So this is our southeast tribe, remember? So it kind of stretches into pretty much all the states in the southeast, right? So Cherokees had two types of towns. They had peace towns and war towns. So the peace towns were a peaceful sanctuary, people just lived there in peace. And then you had your war towns where they held war ceremonies, and they, as you can see here in the middle as the same, they both reported to their supreme chiefs, whether it be of peace or of war. All right. So here I talked about how you're going to see some similarities to the Iroquois, and here they are. They're big on making baskets, pottery. They also hunted, farmed, and fished basically the same similar food as the Iroquois. So there are your very similar things to the Iroquois, as I mentioned before. So that's pretty much all of our information on the Cherokee. Alright, so now let's take a look at the Navajo, which is our southwest little case study here. So the Navajo are located in 4 states, Utah, Colorado, Arizona. You can see that Navajo Nation kind of creeps into all of them. Its capital is Little Rock, Arizona, so you can see that they take a big chunk up of those southwestern states. So it's believed that the Navajo came up from Canada, and they migrated down into what is present-day United States, into the Southwest, and into the states it currently occupied, right? So they came down, they settled down, and a lot of Navajo still live in that same Navajo Nation as seen over here today. They stayed in the native land where their ancestors plopped down who knows how many years ago. So that is the Navajo migration. Navajos were big hunters and gatherers. So what they do, they, as you see on the screen, they have these little pop-up villages. They'd pop up, hunt for some food, eat that food, rest maybe a little, and say, okay, we're going. You saw in the previous slides, they had their nation covered a big land. So they just kept moving. They didn't really stay in one spot for a long period of time. Navajo art. So the Pueblos, who were around in the same area as the Navajo, a bit more into Mexico as well, influenced the Navajo to do art and to add these artistic talents to their culture. And they're still a very big part of Navajo culture today. So they started doing pottery, like this beautiful pottery piece you see up on the top left. They made these carpets, which are a big part of Navajo culture today. Look at these carpets over on your right. And they made jewelry, also influenced by the Pueblo. The Navajo added jewelry to their culture. So the Navajo added pottery, jewelry, and carpets to their culture as influenced by the Pueblo, and it's still a big part of their culture today. So, that's everything we have on Native Americans. We did 3 little case studies, different regions, so we can kind of see how these Native American tribes operated in their individual regions. So, now we know a little bit more, and this is certainly not the end of us discussing Native Americans. We just want to get a bit background on how they work as a unit. So, now our question is, where do we go from here? So the Native Americans, as I said, are not going away. They're going to remain in this unit. They're going to remain further into history. So from now on, we are going to talk about next time, New World exploration and Columbus. So we're going to be talking about explorers coming over. That's going to be our next lesson. And, till next time, guys. See you then.